The classroom buzzed with quiet conversation as students from across the galaxy settled into their seats. Professor Veltar's xenobiology class was always popular, but today felt different. The ancient tree-like beings stood at the front of the room, their bark-covered arms reaching toward the holographic display that flickered to life above them. Hyun sat in the back corner, trying not to draw attention to himself. Being one of only 2 humans at Galactic University Station Omega-7 meant he was always the subject of curious stares. His mentor, Nara, sat beside him with a knowing smile. She had been teaching here for 3 years and was used to the reactions their species received. Today we will examine planetary classifications, Professor Veltar announced, their voice rustling like wind through leaves. Each world in our galaxy falls into specific categories based on habitability and danger levels. The hologram displayed a beautiful blue and green planet. Gentle waves lapped at golden shores while soft clouds drifted across peaceful skies. A warm yellow sun shone down on rolling hills covered in purple grass. This is Tikkaval's homeworld, the professor continued. A Class 1 paradise world. Perfect temperature, stable weather, and harmless wildlife. Tikval, a student made entirely of living crystal, glowed with pride. Their bodies sparkled as light passed through their transparent form. The temperature never changes more than 2 degrees, they said in their musical voice. Our largest predator is the size of your thumb and eats only flower petals. Next came Bluerp's gaseous homeworld, where sentient gas clouds floated through methane skies. Then Zix's planet, where insectoid beings lived in perfect harmony in vast underground cities. Each world seemed safer and more peaceful than the last. Now, Professor Veltar said, let us examine something quite different. The hologram changed. A new planet appeared, and immediately the room filled with gasps of horror. Bright red warning symbols flashed around the image. The words Class 2's Deathworld, Extreme Caution Advised pulsed in threatening letters. The planet looked beautiful at first glance. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with brown and green landmasses scattered between them. White clouds swirled in complex patterns, but as the image zoomed closer, the students could see the truth. Massive storms raged across the surface. Lightning split the sky in jagged lines. Mountains spewed fire and molten rock into the air. The oceans churned with violent waves that could crush entire cities. This, Professor Veltar said solemnly, is Earth. Every eye in the classroom turned to stare at Hyun. His face turned red as dozens of alien students looked at him with mixtures of terror, amazement, and disbelief. Tikval's crystalline body flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme shock. That is where you come from? They whispered. Blurp's gaseous form swirled frantically. How are you still alive? They bubbled in distress. Zix's mandibles clicked together nervously. I have heard stories of Deathworlds, they chittered. Planets so dangerous that even thinking about them brings nightmares. But I never thought I would meet someone who actually lived on one. The other students murmured in agreement. They had all heard tales of Deathworlds during their childhood. These were the planets used in scary stories to frighten young aliens into behaving. Worlds so hostile that no rational being would ever willingly go there. Professor Veltar raised one branch-like arm for silence. This presents us with a unique learning opportunity, they said, looking at Hyun with ancient, knowing eyes. Perhaps our human friend could explain what makes Earth so dangerous. Hyun felt his stomach drop. He looked at Nara, who gave him an encouraging nod. Around the room, alien faces stared at him with eager terror like children waiting for a ghost story. Well, Hyun began, then stopped. How could he explain? Where would he even start? Come now, Professor Veltar encouraged. Your classmates are curious about your homeworld. Surely you can share some basic information about Earth's environment. Hyun stood up slowly. He had given presentations before, but never about something like this. I guess I should start with the basics, he said. Yes, please, Tikkaval urged. We want to understand how any life could survive on such a world. Tell us about the dangers, Bluerp added, their gaseous form quivering with anticipation. Hyun looked around the room at his classmates. They seemed so fragile compared to humans. Tikval's crystal body could probably shatter from a strong wind. Blurp was literally made of gas and could be blown away by a sneeze. Zix's insect-like exoskeleton looked paper-thin. Well, Hyun said carefully, I suppose the weather is probably the most obvious thing that makes Earth different. Weather, Zix asked, confused. What is weather? Hyun blinked in surprise. You don't have weather? Our climate is completely stable, Tikval explained. The temperature is always exactly 23.7 degrees. The humidity never changes. There is no wind stronger than a gentle breeze. Same with my world, Bluerp added. Perfect atmospheric pressure and composition at all times. Nara leaned forward with interest. As a researcher, she had studied dozens of alien worlds, but she still found these differences fascinating. Oh, Hyun said, realizing he was starting with something his classmates couldn't even imagine. Well, on Earth, the weather changes constantly. Water falls from the sky regularly. The classroom erupted in shocked whispers. Water falls from the sky? Blurp gasped, their form rippling with distress. How do you not drown? The sky bleeds water? Zix's voice rose to a high squeak. Not exactly bleeds, Hyun said quickly, seeing their panic. It's called rain. The water evaporates from the oceans, forms clouds, and then falls back down. It's actually quite nice. Professor Veltar made a note on their datapad. Fascinating. And this happens regularly? Every few days in most places, Hyun confirmed. Sometimes it's just a light shower. Other times it's a heavy downpour. During storms, it can rain so hard you can't see more than a few feet in front of you. The alien stared at him in complete silence. The idea of water randomly falling from the sky was apparently too horrifying for words. But that's just the beginning, Hyun continued, not realizing how his next words would affect his audience. Earth also has something called seasons. The temperature changes throughout the year. He was just getting started, but he could already see that his classmates were not prepared for what they were about to learn about his homeworld. Hyun looked around the classroom and decided to continue with what he thought were the simple parts of Earth's environment. He had no idea that what seemed normal to him would sound like pure horror to his alien classmates. So, seasons, he began, pulling up a mental image of his hometown. Where I grew up in Busan, the temperature changes quite a bit throughout the year. In winter, it can get as cold as -10 degrees Celsius. In summer, it might reach 35 degrees. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Tikval's crystalline body began to flicker rapidly, and several small cracks appeared along their surface. 45 degrees of variation? They gasped. That would shatter my entire molecular structure. Flurp's gaseous form started spinning wildly. Such temperature changes would cause my particles to either compress into liquid or expand until I dissolved completely. Zix had gone completely rigid, their compound eyes wide with terror. No creature could survive such extreme fluctuations, they whispered. But it gets better, Hyun said, not realizing that better was definitely not how his classmates would describe it. Humans actually enjoy the seasonal changes. We have festivals to celebrate them. In spring, we have cherry blossom festivals when the trees bloom. In winter, we have snow festivals. Snow? Professor Veltar asked, making more notes. Frozen water that falls from the sky, Hyun explained. It covers everything in white and can pile up several feet deep. Children play in it, adults ski on it, and some people even build shelters out of it for fun. The silence in the room was deafening. Every alien student was staring at Hyun as if he had just described voluntarily jumping into a pit of acid. You said children play in frozen water? Zix finally managed to squeak out. Sure, Hyun said with a smile, remembering his own childhood. We build snowmen, have snowball fights, go sledding down hills. It's one of the best parts of winter. Nara decided to step in with some scientific context before her fellow humans were declared completely insane. She activated her own holographic display and brought up Earth's atmospheric data. Perhaps I can provide some technical details, she said calmly. Earth's atmosphere is composed of approximately 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Zix's breathing apparatus, a small tube connected to their exoskeleton, immediately began wheezing in alarm. 21% oxygen? They gasped. That's poison gas. My species would literally combust in such an atmosphere. You breathe fire gas naturally? Blurp asked in horror, their gaseous form turning a sick green color. It's not fire gas to us, Nara explained patiently. Human physiology evolved to use oxygen for energy production. We actually require it to survive. But how do you not explode? Tikval demanded, their crystal body still flickering with stress fractures. We have special organs called lungs that process the oxygen safely, Hyun said. We breathe it in and out all day, every day. Right now, I'm breathing your classroom's artificial atmosphere, which has much less oxygen than I'm used to. I actually feel a bit lightheaded. Professor Veltar's ancient bark creaked as they leaned forward with interest. You mean to say that Earth's atmosphere is more volatile than what we maintain here in our controlled environment? Much more, Nara confirmed. Earth also experiences significant atmospheric pressure changes. During storms, the pressure can drop rapidly, causing what humans call weather headaches. Your atmosphere attacks you? Blurp bubbled in distress. Not really attacks, Yun said, though he was starting to realize how everything sounded to his classmates. It's just dynamic, always changing. That's part of what makes Earth interesting. He decided to continue with what he thought was basic information. Earth is also geologically active. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. The classroom fell completely silent except for the quiet humming of the space station's life support systems. Even Professor Veltar had stopped taking notes and was staring at Hyun with something approaching awe. Earthquakes? Tikval whispered. The ground moves? Sometimes, Hyun nodded. The planet's crust is made up of moving plates. When they shift, the ground shakes. Most of the time it's barely noticeable, but occasionally it can be quite strong. And you just live with this? Six asked, their voice barely audible. Well, we build our structures to withstand earthquakes, Hyun explained. Modern buildings are designed to flex and sway rather than break. It's actually quite impressive from an engineering standpoint. What about the volcanoes? Professor Veltar asked, though they sounded like they might regret the question. Mountains that spew molten rock, Nara explained clinically. Earth has hundreds of active volcanoes. Some erupt regularly, others are dormant but could become active again. Mountains that bleed fire, Zix translated in horror. And tsunamis are massive waves, Hyun continued, warming to his subject. They can be as tall as buildings and move at incredible speeds across the ocean. When they hit land, they can travel several miles inland. The water attacks the land. Blurp's form was now rapidly shifting between different colors, a clear sign of extreme distress. Natural disasters happen on most worlds, Nara said, trying to provide some perspective. What makes Earth unusual is the frequency and variety. How do humans survive all of this? Tikval asked. Your world sounds like it's actively trying to kill everything on it. Hyun paused, considering this. From their perspective, he supposed it did sound pretty dangerous. I guess we've just adapted to it, he said. Humans are pretty good at adapting to changing conditions. But surely your species stays in safe areas. Professor Veltar suggested hopefully. Away from the volcanoes and earthquake zones? Actually, some of our biggest cities are built right on fault lines or near active volcanoes, Hyun said. San Francisco sits on a major earthquake zone and millions of people live there. Naples is built practically on top of Mount Vesuvius. Your species voluntarily chooses to live in the most dangerous areas? Zix's voice had risen to a high squeak again. Well, those areas often have other advantages, Hyun explained. Volcanic soil is incredibly fertile for growing food. Coastal areas near fault lines often have good harbors. Humans are very good at weighing risks against benefits. The alien students exchanged glances that clearly said they thought humans were completely insane. There's more, isn't there? Professor Veltar asked, though they sounded like they were dreading the answer. Hyun nodded cheerfully, completely unaware of the growing horror on his classmates' faces. Oh yes, we haven't even talked about the wildlife yet. The word wildlife seemed to hang in the air like a threat. Every alien student in the room leaned forward with a mixture of fascination and terror. Hyun, still completely unaware of how his words were affecting his audience, decided to start with what he considered the most harmless examples. Let me show you something that most humans are familiar with, he said, activating his personal holographic projector. The image that appeared was small and fluffy with large eyes and pointed ears. This is my pet cat, Bomi. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Tikval's crystalline body developed several new stress fractures. Blurp's gaseous form compressed into a tight ball of terror. Zix fell backward off their chair with a loud clatter. That's a predator, Zix squeaked from the floor. Look at those claws. Those teeth. Those hunting eyes, Bomi. Hyun looked at the innocent image of his cat, confused. She's actually very gentle. She mostly sleeps in sunny spots and purrs when you pet her. It makes threatening sounds? Blurp gasped. No, purring is a happy sound, Hyun explained patiently. Cats purr when they're content. It's actually quite soothing. You keep a predator in your home for companionship? Professor Veltar asked, their ancient voice filled with disbelief. Millions of humans do, Hyun confirmed. Cats are one of the most popular pets on Earth. Some people have multiple cats. Multiple predators, Zix corrected weakly from the floor. Nara decided to provide some context. Domestic cats are actually quite small compared to Earth's other predators, she said, bringing up her own display. These are some of the larger carnivores that share the planet with humans. The new images showed bears, lions, tigers, sharks, and crocodiles. With each new creature, the alien student's horror grew more intense. Tikval was now making a sound like crystal wind chimes in a hurricane. Blurp had turned a sickly yellow color and was spinning rapidly. Bears can weigh up to 800 kilograms, Nara explained in her calm, scientific voice. They have claws longer than your fingers and can run faster than most human vehicles. And humans live near these monsters? Tikval managed to ask through their distress. Bears live in forests and mountains all over Earth, Yun said. Most humans who live in bear country just take basic precautions. We store food properly and make noise when hiking so we don't surprise them. You go into their territory voluntarily. Zix had managed to climb back onto their chair but was shaking visibly. Hiking is a popular recreational activity, Hyun confirmed. People enjoy walking through forests and mountains. It's peaceful and good exercise. The alien stared at him as if he had just described voluntarily swimming in acid. What about the water predators? Blurp asked, though they clearly didn't want to know the answer. Nara highlighted the shark image. Great white sharks can grow up to 6 meters long. They have rows of razor-sharp teeth and can detect a single drop of blood in the water from kilometers away. And humans swim in the same water as these death fish. Tikval's voice was barely a whisper. Swimming in the ocean is very popular, Hyun said. Beaches are major vacation destinations. My friend June actually works as a marine biologist. He studies great white sharks by swimming with them. This statement was apparently too much for Zix, who promptly fainted again. Their exoskeleton hit the floor with a hollow thump. Your friend voluntarily enters the water with apex predators? Professor Veltar asked, making rapid notes despite their obvious shock. He wears protective equipment, Hyun said, as if this made it perfectly reasonable. And he's learned their behavior patterns. June says sharks are actually quite predictable once you understand them. He studies them, Blurp repeated faintly. Your species studies the creatures that hunt you. Well, we're not really prey, Hyun explained. Humans are apex predators too. We just happen to share the planet with other apex predators. This revelation caused Tikval's flickering to intensify. You mean humans are also predators? Omnivores, technically, Nara corrected. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're actually quite effective predators when we need to be. The classroom medical system apparently detected the stress levels in the room and began pumping calming pheromones into the air. It didn't seem to help much. But surely, Professor Veltar said hopefully, humans avoid the most dangerous creatures? Hyun considered this. Actually, some humans seek them out. We have places called zoos where people go specifically to see dangerous animals, and wildlife documentaries are very popular entertainment. Entertainment? Blurp's form was now a rapidly shifting kaleidoscope of distressed colors. People find it relaxing to watch predators in their natural habitats, Hyun explained. There are entire television channels dedicated to wildlife programming. You watch predators hunt for fun? Tikval asked weakly. It's educational too, Hyun added. We learn about animal behavior and ecology. Some humans become so interested that they dedicate their lives to studying wildlife. Nara brought up images of wildlife researchers working with various dangerous animals. Conservation biologists work directly with everything from venomous snakes to polar bears. They track animals, study their behavior, and work to protect their habitats. Protect them? Zix had regained consciousness but remained flat on the floor. You protect the creatures that try to kill you? Most animal attacks on humans are actually very rare, Hyun explained. We've learned to coexist with dangerous wildlife. In fact, humans are usually more dangerous to other animals than they are to us. This statement seemed to confuse the aliens even more. Some humans even keep dangerous animals as pets, Nara added, apparently deciding that total honesty was the best policy. More dangerous than the mini predator cats? Blurp asked in horror. Some people keep snakes, Hyun said. Others have large lizards, spiders, or even small sharks in aquariums. The silence that followed this statement was broken only by the sound of Zix quietly whimpering. And this is all considered normal on your world? Professor Veltar asked. Pretty normal, Hyun confirmed. Though not everyone is comfortable with exotic pets. Most people stick with cats and dogs. Dogs? Tikval asked with dread. Domesticated wolves, Nara explained helpfully. The sound Tickville made could have shattered glass if their classroom had any. But we haven't even discussed the microscopic life yet, Nara added, apparently unaware that her audience was already at their breaking point. The mention of microscopic predators was apparently the final straw for several students. The medical team had to be called as half the class showed signs of psychological shock. As the medical technicians worked to revive the unconscious aliens, Hyun looked around the room with growing concern. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked Nara quietly. "I think," she replied with a slight smile, "that our classmates are beginning to understand why Earth is classified as a death world." After the medical team finished reviving the unconscious students and administering emergency stress medications, Professor Veltar made a decision. Despite the obvious trauma their students were experiencing, this was turning into the most educational xenobiology lesson in the university's history. "While my students recover," the professor announced, "I believe we should continue. This is a rare opportunity to understand how life adapts to extreme environments." Hyun looked around the room at his classmates, who were all staring at him with expressions ranging from terror to amazement. He was finally beginning to understand that maybe humans were more unusual than he had realized. "I think I should explain how humans actually managed to survive on Earth," he said carefully. "We're not just lucky. We've adapted to handle all these challenges." Tickville, their crystal body now held together with emergency biotape, managed to speak. "You mean your species has biological defenses against your world's dangers?" "In a way," Hyun nodded. "Let me start with temperature tolerance." He activated his holographic display to show human physiology. Humans can survive in temperatures from about -40 degrees to +50 degrees Celsius. The aliens stared at the display in stunned silence. The temperature range Hyun had just described covered more variation than most of their species could tolerate in their entire lifetime. "That's impossible," Blue Earp whispered, their gaseous form barely maintaining coherence. "No biological organism could function across such extremes." "Human bodies are very good at regulating temperature," Nara explained, bringing up detailed biological charts. "We sweat to cool down and shiver to warm up. Our blood vessels expand and contract to control heat distribution. Your bodies automatically adjust to environmental changes," Zix asked weakly. "Without us even thinking about it," Hyun confirmed. "But that's just basic survival. Humans can also adapt to extreme environments through training and equipment." He showed images of humans in various extreme conditions: mountain climbers on frozen peaks, researchers in scorching deserts, deep sea divers in crushing ocean depths. Some humans climb mountains over 8,000 meters high, he explained, where the air is so thin that most species would suffocate and the temperature never rises above freezing. They climb death mountains for fun? Tickville's voice was barely audible. "Mount Everest is actually quite popular," Hyun said. "Hundreds of people attempt to climb it every year." Professor Veltar made a note. "And they survive this voluntarily." "Most do," Hyun nodded. "With proper preparation and equipment, humans are very good at creating tools to help them survive in hostile environments." Nara brought up more data. "But perhaps the most remarkable human adaptation is endurance. Humans are persistence hunters by evolution." "What does that mean?" Plorp asked nervously. "It means humans can run continuously for hours," Nara explained. "They would chase prey animals until the animals collapsed from exhaustion." The aliens looked horrified. On their worlds, most creatures needed to rest after a few minutes of activity. "Your species hunts by never stopping?" Zix squeaked. "Ancient humans did," Hyun confirmed. "Modern humans still have that ability. We just use it differently now." He showed footage from Earth's sporting events, marathon runners covering 42 kilometers, ultramarathon competitors running for days across deserts and mountains. "This is my sister Yuna completing a 100-kilometer ultramarathon," Hyun said proudly, pointing to a small figure running through mountain trails. "She trained for months by running through forests where bears and wild boars live. She runs through predator territory to prepare for running even further?" Tickville asked in disbelief. "Training in difficult conditions makes you stronger," Hyun explained. "That's a basic human principle." The medical team had to administer more stress medication to several students. "But surely humans are fragile in other ways?" Professor Veltar asked hopefully. "Actually, humans are remarkably durable," Nara said, pulling up medical data. Human bones can withstand tremendous pressure before breaking. Human skin automatically seals minor wounds. The human immune system fights off countless microorganisms every day. She showed a microscopic view of human blood cells attacking bacteria. Humans are constantly at war with microscopic invaders, and they usually win. Your bodies fight invisible enemies? Blurp's form was cycling through colors of distress. All the time, Hyun said cheerfully. Most humans don't even notice unless they get sick. And even then, human bodies usually heal themselves within a few days. He rolled up his sleeve to show a small scar on his arm. I got this when I fell off my bike as a child. The wound sealed itself, grew new skin, and healed completely. Human bodies are very good at repairing damage. The alien stared at the scar as if it were evidence of a miracle. On most worlds, Professor Veltar explained quietly, any significant injury is permanent or fatal. The idea of biological self-repair is extraordinary. What about pain tolerance? Nara asked, apparently determined to complete their education. Oh, humans can function even when seriously injured, Hyun said. We have something called adrenaline that lets us ignore pain and keep going during emergencies. He told them about human mothers giving birth, about athletes competing with broken bones, about people walking miles to get help after accidents. Your reproductive process is so traumatic it would kill most species, Zix whispered. Yet your females voluntarily undergo this repeatedly? My mother had 4 children, Hyun said. She always said it was worth it. And humans just continue functioning with broken bones? Tikval asked. Sometimes, Hyun nodded. Adrenaline is amazing stuff. It temporarily blocks pain and gives humans extra strength and speed. Extra strength? Blorp asked faintly. There are stories of humans lifting cars off trapped people, Nara explained, or running faster than they ever thought possible to escape danger. Your bodies have an emergency mode that makes you stronger? Professor Veltar was taking notes so rapidly their bark was smoking. When we need it, Hyun confirmed, though it's not good to use it too often. The room fell silent as the aliens processed this information. Finally, Tikval spoke up. How did your species develop all these abilities? Hyun thought about this. I guess Earth forced us to adapt. Every challenge our world threw at us, we found a way to handle. Over millions of years, the humans who could survive became the ancestors of modern humans. Your planet created you, Professor Veltar said slowly, understanding dawning in their ancient voice. In a way, Hyun agreed. Earth made us tough because we had to be tough to survive. But there's more to it than just survival, Nara added. All these challenges shaped human culture, technology, and society too. Hyun nodded. That's probably the most important part. Earth didn't just make us strong, it made us work together. The classroom had grown quiet as the alien students struggled to process everything they had learned about humans and Earth. Professor Veltar, ancient and wise from countless years of teaching, recognized that this moment could change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Hyun, the professor said gently, you mentioned that Earth's challenges made humans work together. Can you explain what you mean? Hyun looked around the room at his classmates. They no longer looked at him with simple terror. Now there was something else in their eyes, a growing respect mixed with amazement. Well, Hyun began thoughtfully, no single human could survive Earth alone. Our world is too dangerous, too unpredictable. So we learned to cooperate. He activated his holographic display to show images of human settlements throughout history. When early humans faced predators, they worked in groups. When storms threatened their homes, they helped each other rebuild. When food was scarce, they shared what they had. Your cooperation comes from necessity, Tikval observed. Their crystal bodies stable for the first time since the lesson began. At first, yes, Hyun agreed. But over time, it became something more. Humans began to help each other not just to survive, but because helping others felt right. Nara brought up images of human rescue teams working during natural disasters. When earthquakes destroy cities, humans from around the world send aid. When storms flood coastal areas, strangers risk their lives to save people they've never met. You help others even when you gain nothing from it? Flurp asked, their gaseous form slowly returning to a healthy blue color. Especially then, Hyun said with a smile. Humans believe that helping others is one of the most important things you can do. Professor Veltar made careful notes. And this cooperation extended to your technological development? Absolutely, Nara confirmed. Every human innovation came from trying to solve problems that Earth created. We needed shelter from storms, so we learned architecture. We needed to find food during harsh seasons, so we developed agriculture. We needed to communicate across distances during emergencies, so we invented complex communication systems. Hyun showed images of human cities, with their earthquake-resistant buildings and storm management systems. Modern human cities are designed to withstand almost anything Earth can throw at them. But they're also beautiful. The aliens stared at the images of parks filled with flowering trees, of art galleries and concert halls, of children playing in playgrounds built to survive natural disasters. You turn survival into beauty, Zix whispered, their compound eyes wide with wonder. That's very human, Hyun agreed. We don't just want to survive, we want to live well. We want to create beautiful things and share them with others. Nara showed images of human art, music, and literature. Human creativity comes directly from their relationship with their dangerous world. Their music often celebrates the beauty of storms. Their art captures the power of volcanoes and oceans. Their stories tell of heroes who face impossible challenges. Your art is about surviving your world? Tikval asked. And making it better, Hyun corrected. Look at this. He showed images of human conservation efforts, national parks protecting dangerous wildlife, coral reef restoration projects, reforestation programs. Humans learned to see beauty in the very things that once threatened them, he explained. Now we work to protect the forests where bears live, the oceans where sharks hunt, the mountains that might erupt. You protect your predators, Professor Veltar said slowly, understanding dawning in their ancient voice. We protect our world, Hyun said simply. All of it. The dangerous parts and the safe parts. We learned that everything is connected. Blurp's form brightened considerably. Your species turned a Deathworld into a garden. We're still working on it, Hyun admitted. Earth is still dangerous, still unpredictable. But now that's part of what makes it beautiful. We've learned to dance with the danger instead of just running from it. Nara brought up images of modern Earth. Cities that coexisted with wildlife. Technology that worked with natural systems instead of against them. Humans and animals sharing spaces in harmony. This is remarkable, Professor Veltar said, their voice filled with awe. Your species faced a hostile environment and not only survived, but transformed it through cooperation and creativity. Tikval's crystal body was now glowing with excited energy instead of stress. I understand now, they said. Humans aren't just survivors of a death world. You're artists who use the death world as your canvas. Every challenge became an opportunity, Zix added, their earlier fear replaced by admiration. Every danger became a chance to grow stronger, and every threat became a reason to work together, Blurp concluded. Hyun felt a warm feeling in his chest as he looked at his classmates. They finally understood what it meant to be human. That's why humans can seem so strange to other species, Nara explained. You see us as either impossibly brave or completely insane, because you can't imagine choosing to face danger when you could avoid it. But for humans, avoiding danger isn't really living, Hyun added. We've learned that the most beautiful things often come from the most challenging situations. Professor Veltar set down their note-taking device. Class, they announced, today we have learned something extraordinary. We have discovered that intelligence and compassion can flourish even in the harshest environments. Perhaps especially in harsh environments. The alien students looked around at each other, then back at Hyun and Nara. The fear was completely gone now, replaced by something much more valuable. Understanding. Hyun, Blurp said hesitantly. Would you tell us more about Earth sometime? About how your people learned to make beauty from danger? Hyun grinned, the same expression that had once terrified his classmates but now seemed warm and friendly. I'd be happy to. There's so much more to share. Like what? Zix asked eagerly. Well, Hyun said thoughtfully, I haven't even mentioned our weather phenomena yet. Have you ever heard of tornadoes? The alien students exchanged glances, but this time they weren't filled with terror. They were filled with curiosity and excitement. Tell us everything, Tikval said, their crystal bodies sparkling with anticipation. As Hyun began to describe the spinning storms that could level entire towns, Professor Veltar smiled to themselves. Their students were no longer learning just about a death world and its impossible inhabitants. They were learning about the power of adaptation, cooperation, and hope. They were learning what it truly meant to be alive in a dangerous universe, and perhaps most importantly, they were learning that sometimes the most beautiful flowers grew in the harshest soil.